I never thought a casual evening turned company gala would shatter the careful facade I'd built over 7 years of marriage. But there I stood in my black cocktail dress, watching my husband raise his champagne glass and smirk. Let me introduce my wife, Elena. She's just a housewife, but she makes a mean lasagna. The entire room of architects and executives laughed, not knowing I held the papers in my clutch that would turn their world upside down. Thompson and Reed Architects, the prestigious firm my husband's family had built over 3 generations, now belonged to me. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The day everything changed started like any other Thursday morning in our Victorian brownstone. I was in the kitchen, packing our daughter Sophie's lunch while my husband James prepared for another important meeting at Thompson and Reed Architects. He barely touched his coffee, absorbed in his phone as usual. "Don't forget about the gala. Tonight," he said without looking up. "Wear something appropriate. The Morrison account is almost sealed." I nodded, remembering the times I'd helped review those same Morrison account proposals in secret, fixing glaring errors in the design specifications when James was asleep. He never questioned why his revised drawings always came back perfect. "Of course," I replied, adjusting Sophie's lunchbox. "The black Chanel? Perfect. Just try to stick to safe topics. These are serious people." He grabbed his briefcase, kissing Sophie's forehead. "See you tonight, princess." After he left, Sophie looked up from her cereal. "Mom, why does Dad always talk to you like you're one of his interns?" My throat tightened. At 10, she was already too perceptive. "Sometimes people see what they expect to see, honey. But you went to Arch." I pressed a finger to my lips, our usual signal. Some secrets weren't ready to be shared. The truth was, I hadn't always been just a housewife. 10 years ago, I was Elena Mitchell, graduating top of my class from Columbia's School of Architecture. James and I met at a prestigious firm in Boston where I was a rising star. But love makes you do strange things. When he mentioned his family's struggle to maintain control of Thompson and Reed after his father's death, I thought I could help from the sidelines. "The board's breathing down our necks," he'd confided back then. "If we don't turn things around, we'll lose everything my grandfather built." So I stepped back, became the supportive wife, secretly using my expertise to help James succeed. Every tea night, I'd review his projects, refine the designs, strengthen the proposals. His sudden improvement was attributed to finally living up to the Thompson legacy. Nobody questioned why the struggling heir apparent suddenly became a design virtuoso. But lately, something had shifted. James grew distant, dismissive. The late nights at the office multiplied. And then there were the whispers about Rebecca, the new head of business development. "Mom?" Sophie's voice pulled me back. "Can you help with my design project? We're supposed to build a dream house." I smiled, pulling out the drafting supplies I kept hidden in a kitchen drawer. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's start with the foundation." As we sketched, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus Chen, my old college friend and now a powerful investment banker. "It's done. The paperwork will be ready by tonight." My hands shook slightly. 6 months ago, when I discovered Thompson and Reed was secretly struggling and the board was planning to sell, I'd contacted Marcus. Using my inheritance and his financial expertise, we'd quietly orchestrated a complex purchase through a holding company. James was so busy with Rebecca, he never noticed the signs. Another message lit up my phone. This one from Rebecca to James, accidentally sent to the family iPad synced to my phone. "Can't wait to tell everyone our news at the gala. Time to reshape the firm our way." Sophie looked up from her sketching. "Mom, are you okay? You look pale." I forced a smile, watching my daughter add perfect parallel lines to her drawing, architectural talent flowing through her veins. I'm fine. Honey, just thinking about tonight. Can I see your old drawings sometime? The ones in the attic? I froze. What drawings? I found your college portfolio last week. The one that says Elena Mitchell, Columbia Architecture. Why did you stop designing buildings, Mom? The question hung in the air like smoke. Why had I stopped? When had supporting James turned into erasing myself? My phone buzzed again. Marcus. Final contracts delivered to your private office. Ready when you are. I looked at Sophie, so young but already facing a world that might try to diminish her dreams. Not if I could help it. Actually, sweetie, I said, pulling out fresh drafting paper. Let me show you something I've been working on. A design for a building that's going to change everything. As I began to sketch, years of hidden expertise flowing through my pencil, I thought about the gala tonight. About James's condescending introductions, Rebecca's smug smile, and the contracts waiting in my office that would reveal the truth. The just a housewife they'd dismissed had orchestrated the biggest acquisition in the firm's history. Tonight, everything would change. And this time, I wouldn't be hiding in the shadows of my own design. The gala invitation sat on my desk, its gold lettering catching the afternoon light. Thompson and Reed Architects' 75th anniversary celebration. I traced the firm's logo, 3 intersecting lines forming a perfect triangle, a design I'd actually created years ago when James complained about their dated branding. He'd presented it as his own work, of course. Mrs. Thompson? Maria, our housekeeper, appeared at my office. Door. The dress is ready and your hair appointment is in an hour. I nodded, still staring at the invitation. Thank you, Maria. Is Sophie finished with her homework? Yes. She's still working on that design project. She has quite the talent. Maria hesitated. She reminds me of you, you know. I remember finding your old sketches when cleaning the attic last spring. My head snapped up. You never mentioned that. Maria's kind eyes met mine. It wasn't my place. But I've worked for this family for 15 years, Mrs. Thompson. I was here when you first arrived, so full of passion about architecture. I watched you fade. The truth of her words stung. I had faded, gradually erasing myself until I fit into the narrow space James had carved out for me. But that wasn't the whole story. While I played the perfect wife in public, I'd been quietly preparing for this day. The Morrison account presentations, I said slowly. Did you happen to see them on James's desk last week? Maria's expression shifted. Yes, and I saw the woman who dropped them off late Tuesday night, Miss Rebecca. They seemed very familiar with each other. The confirmation shouldn't have hurt. I'd known about James and Rebecca for months. That's what had finally pushed me to contact Marcus. Still, the pain was sharp and clean, like cutting yourself on fresh drafting paper. Mrs. Thompson. Maria stepped closer. I also saw something else. The designs. They changed after you spent that night in the study. The whole flow of the building was different. Better. I stood up, moving to the window. Outside, Sophie was sketching in the garden, her face screwed up in concentration just like mine used to be in architecture school. Maria, what I'm about to tell you needs to stay between us. Tonight isn't just about the firm's anniversary. Things are about to change, and I need your help making sure Sophie is protected from any fallout. As I explained the situation, Maria's eyes widened. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. All these years, she finally said, you've been the real architect behind his success. Not exactly. I pulled out a hidden folder from my desk drawer. James is talented, when he actually does the work. But lately, he's been letting Rebecca handle everything while he takes the credit. And their designs? I spread out the latest proposals. They're ambitious but fundamentally flawed. The Morrison project they're announcing tonight? The support structures wouldn't hold under the specified conditions. Does Mr. Thompson know? He would if he'd actually reviewed the plans instead of focusing on his relationship with Rebecca. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. They're so convinced of their own brilliance, they've gotten sloppy. I gathered the papers back up. That's why the board was secretly planning to sell. The firm's reputation is at risk. Maria's eyes narrowed. And now you own it. Through a holding company, yes. Nobody knows except my lawyer and Marcus Chen from Kingston Capital. The investment banker? The one Mr. Thompson always brags about playing golf with? I allowed myself a small smile. James never realized Marcus was my college friend before he was his golf buddy. He's been helping me set this up for months. My phone buzzed, a message from Rebecca to James that had once again synced to my iPad. Everything's ready for tonight. After the announcement, there's no going back. Maria read the message over my shoulder. They're planning something. They are. I closed my laptop. James and Rebecca think they're orchestrating some kind of takeover, leveraging the Morrison contract to push out the board. They have no idea the firm's already been sold. The intercom chimed. The car service had arrived to take me to my hair appointment. I gathered my things, but Maria caught my arm. Mrs. Thompson, Elena, are you sure about this? Mr. Thompson's family. They're powerful people. I thought about the day I'd given up my own career, thinking I was supporting my husband's dreams. I thought about Sophie, watching and learning what it means to be a woman in this world. The Thompson family built their power on other people's work, including mine. But that's not what bothers me most. I pulled out Sophie's latest school project, a meticulously designed treehouse that showed remarkable understanding of structural principles. What bothers me is the legacy we're leaving for our daughter. What are we teaching her about her own worth? Maria squeezed my hand. Then go. Show them who you really are. In the car, I reviewed the final contracts on my phone. The holding company, Mitchell Design Group, named after my grandmother who'd paid for my architecture school, was now the official owner of Thompson & Reed. The board had been quietly informed this morning, though the identity of the new owner was still under wraps. Another message flashed across my screen, this one from Marcus. Board members all confirmed for tonight. Ready for your signal. I typed back, after James's speech, let him and Rebecca make their announcement first. The car pulled up to the salon, but I sat there for a moment, remembering the day I'd first walked into Thompson & Reed. I'd been so in love with James, so eager to help him succeed. Somewhere along the way, that dedication had turned into erasure. Never again, I whispered, gathering my courage. Tonight, the woman who'd hidden behind just a housewife would finally step into the light. As I watched the city speed by through the car window, I thought about all the buildings we passed, monuments to ambition, to vision, to the audacity of reaching skyward. Tonight, I would build something too, a new foundation, one that could support not just a legacy, but the truth. The salon mirror reflected back a woman I barely recognized. My usually simple hair was swept into an elegant updo, makeup perfect, the black Chanel dress highlighting every curve. I looked exactly like what James wanted, the perfect trophy wife, an ornament at his side. The car's here, Mrs. Thompson, the receptionist announced. Your daughter called. She said it's urgent. My heart jumped as I pulled out my phone. Sophie's text made my blood run cold. Mom, Rebecca's here. She and Dad are in his study. They're fighting about papers. I quickly typed back, is everything okay? They keep talking about tonight. Rebecca said something about making sure Elena doesn't interfere with the plan. Mom, I'm scared. My hands shook as I gathered my things. Stay in your room, honey. Maria's there, right? Yes. Mom. I heard Dad say he's going to take care of the problem tonight. The drive home took exactly 12 minutes. I spent each one remembering all the signs I'd ignored over the past year. The late-night calls, the changed passwords on the company servers, the way James had slowly pushed me away from even informally advising on projects. When I walked into the house, raised voices echoed, "From James's study. She'll ruin everything." Rebecca's voice cracked with anger. "You promised you'd handle this." "And I will." James's tone was cold in a way I'd never heard before. "Elena knows her place. She spent 7 years being the perfect wife. One more night won't change anything. But the board won't be a problem after tonight. Once we announce the Morrison deal and your promotion, they'll fall in line. And if Elena tries to interfere—" He paused. "Well, let's just say I have contingency plans." I stepped closer to the partially open door, my heart pounding. "What about the ownership transfer papers?" Rebecca asked. "If she finds out—" "She won't. Elena's too busy planning dinner parties and charity events to notice what's happening at the firm. Trust me, by tomorrow morning, Thompson and Reed will be under new management. Our management." I'd heard enough. I climbed the stairs to Sophie's room, finding her and Maria sitting tensely on the bed. "Mom!" Sophie ran to me. "I'm sorry I called, but you did exactly right, sweetheart." I held her close, meeting Maria's worried eyes over her head. "Did they see you?" Sophie shook her head. "I was getting water when they came in. They didn't know I was there." Maria stood up. "Mrs. Thompson, perhaps Sophie should stay with me tonight." "My daughter would love the company." I nodded gratefully. We'd discussed this contingency. "Pack a bag, honey, just for one night." "But Mom, what about your big surprise?" "I wanted to see Sophie." I knelt to her level. "Remember what we talked about? About how sometimes people underestimate you. But that can be your strength?" She nodded solemnly. "Tonight's about showing them who we really are. But I need you safe while I do that. Understand?" After Sophie left with Maria, I went to my private office, the one room James never entered because it was just for my charity work. Behind a false panel in the bookshelf, I retrieved the real ownership transfer papers. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Elena, urgent news. James just tried to file ownership transfer papers for the firm. Obviously invalid since you're the owner, but he's planning something big." I quickly typed back. "I know. He and Rebecca are moving tonight. Stick to the plan." Another message flashed, the family lawyer this time. "Mrs. Thompson, your husband, just requested an urgent meeting about post-nuptial agreements and asset division. Should I proceed?" So that was his contingency plan. Sign over the firm to Rebecca, then divorce me with nothing. I took a deep breath, channeling the strength of the young architect I used to be. The one who graduated top of her class, who could hold her own in any design review. Opening my laptop, I pulled up the Morrison project files. There it was, Rebecca's fatal flaw. In her rush to make the design more impressive, she'd compromised the structural integrity of the entire building. James, too arrogant to properly review it, had signed off. When this came to light, their professional reputations would be destroyed. My phone buzzed one final time. The board chairman. "Mrs. Mitchell-Thompson, everything is in place. The shareholders are prepared for your announcement." I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting my dress. The woman who stared back wasn't just a housewife anymore. She was the owner of one of the city's most prestigious architectural firms, and she had the evidence of her husband's professional and personal betrayal in her clutch. The doorbell rang. My car for the gala. As I descended the stairs, I heard James and Rebecca exit his study. They froze when they saw me. "Elena!" James recovered quickly, his mask of affection sliding into place. "You look perfect, darling. Ready for our big night?" I smiled, thinking of the real blueprints in my bag. "Oh yes, husband. I'm ready for everything to be revealed." Rebecca shifted uncomfortably, her red dress too tight, too obvious. "James, we should go. Separate cars will look better." "Of course." He kissed my cheek, his lips cold. See you there, darling. Remember, just smile and look pretty. Leave the business talk to us. I watched them leave, Rebecca's hand lingering, too long on James's arm. In the following car, I opened my clutch, checking one last time. The real ownership papers, the structural analysis of the Morrison project, and the board's signed support. My phone lit up with a text from Sophie. Show them who you are, Mom. I love you. As we pulled up to the gala venue, I took one last deep breath. Tonight, just a housewife would bring down the house that Thompson built and rebuild it stronger, better, honest. And I knew exactly where to start, the Thompson and Reed anniversary. Gala was everything you'd expect from a top architectural firm. Grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers, scale models of their most famous buildings displayed like crown jewels. I noticed they'd included projects I'd secretly refined, my uncredited work gleaming under spotlights. Elena, darling, James's mother Margaret approached, champagne in hand. Don't you look appropriate? Her eyes swept over my dress, looking for flaws to critique. Though perhaps a bit formal for someone just here to support her husband. Hello, Margaret. I kissed her cheek, feeling her stiffen. Lovely event. Yes, well, some of us understand the importance of maintaining appearances. She lowered her voice. I do hope you remember what we discussed about letting James handle the business discussions. The Morrison clients are here, and we can't afford any domestic distractions. I followed her gaze to where James stood with Rebecca, their heads bent close together as they charmed Mr. Morrison and his team. The old Elena would have felt small under Margaret's condescension. But tonight, I thought about Sophie's drawings hidden in her room, about the legacy of silence I refused to pass down. Actually, Margaret, I've been meaning to ask your opinion on the Morrison project's support structure design. The current plans seem a bit unstable. She blinked, caught off guard. I hardly think... Mrs. Thompson, Marcus Chen's voice cut through the tension. Just the person I wanted to see. Margaret's demeanor instantly changed. Marcus wasn't just my college friend anymore. He was one of the city's most powerful investment bankers. Mr. Chen, how lovely. I was just telling Elena to leave you, gentlemen, to your business discussions. Oh? Marcus raised an eyebrow. That would be a shame, especially given Elena's exceptional understanding of architectural principles. In fact, I touched his arm, silencing him. Not yet. The pieces weren't all in place. Across the room, James was calling for attention, champagne glass raised. Distinguished colleagues, honored clients, family, and friends, welcome to Thompson and Reed's 75th anniversary celebration. The crowd applauded. I noticed the board members, gathering near the back, their faces grim. They knew what was coming, or thought they did. For 3 generations, my family has built this firm on excellence, integrity, and innovation, James continued. Tonight, we're not just celebrating our past, we're unveiling our future. Rebecca moved to stand beside him, her smile triumphant. I saw Margaret's eyes narrow at their proximity. I'm proud to announce that Thompson and Reed has secured the Morrison Tower project, the largest commercial development in our city's history. More applause. Mr. Morrison beamed. Furthermore, James went on. This success is largely due to our brilliant head of business development, Rebecca Carter. Which is why I'm announcing her promotion to full partner, effective immediately. The room erupted in murmurs. Partnership was traditionally reserved for family members. Margaret's champagne glass shook. Rebecca's vision for the Morrison project represents everything our firm stands for. Her innovative design. You mean my design? The words left my mouth before I could stop them, carrying clearly across the suddenly silent room. James's smile froze. Elena, darling, perhaps you've had too much champagne. I haven't had a drop. I moved forward, aware of every eye on me. Would you like me to explain the support structure calculations that make Rebecca's design impossible to execute? Or shall we discuss the real ownership of Thompson and Reed first? Elena. His voice held a warning. You're embarrassing yourself. No, James. I'm done being embarrassed. I opened my clutch, removing the papers. Rebecca's design would collapse under its own weight within 5 years. I can prove it. Just like I can prove that your attempts to transfer ownership of the firm today were invalid. Rebecca stepped forward, her confidence cracking. You don't know what you're talking about. This is a technical discussion beyond a housewife's understanding? I turned to Mr. Morrison. Sir, would you like to see the structural analysis? Or perhaps you'd prefer to discuss it with the actual owner of Thompson and Reed? The owner is standing right here, James snapped, but Marcus was already moving. Actually, he announced, as of 9 a.m. this morning, Thompson and Reed Architects is owned by the Mitchell Design Group. He paused for effect. Founded and led by Elena Mitchell Thompson. The silence was deafening. Margaret swayed, clutching a chair for support. That's impossible, James whispered. Elena doesn't. She can't. Columbia School of Architecture. Class of 2013, graduated summa cum laude, I said clearly. But you knew that, James. You knew exactly who I was when you asked me to step back and support your career instead. Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Morrison spoke up. Are you saying you found structural flaws in the current design? Not just flaws. I nodded to Marcus, who distributed copies of my analysis. I'm saying I can fix them. I already have, actually. The revised plans are included in those packets. The room erupted in chaos. Board members surrounded James and Rebecca, demanding explanations. Margaret sank into her chair, face ashen. Mr. Morrison and his team huddled over my documents, their expressions growing increasingly concerned. How long? James's voice cut through the noise. He stood before me, rage and disbelief warring in his eyes. How long have you been planning this? Since I found out about you and Rebecca? About 6 months. I met his gaze steadily. Since you started taking credit for my improvements to your projects? About 7 years. You've destroyed everything. No, James. I've saved it. Check the analysis. Check the ownership papers. Everything's legal. Everything's documented. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. The only thing destroyed is the lie, that I'm just a housewife. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a message from Maria. Sophie wants you to know she's proud of you. I thought of our daughter, probably still awake, waiting to hear how her mother finally stepped into her own light. I thought of all the nights I'd spent secretly fixing James's designs, telling myself I was being supportive when really, I was just hiding. The board is calling an emergency meeting, Marcus announced. Mr. Morrison would like to discuss the revised plans with Mrs. Thompson Mitchell. Mitchell, I corrected, removing my wedding ring. Just Mitchell now. The next few hours passed in a blur of meetings and revelations. The board members gathered in Thompson and Reed's conference room above the gala venue, their faces a mix of shock, respect, and in some cases, clear relief. James and Rebecca were notably absent, having been escorted out by security after their attempt to destroy digital files I'd already backed up months ago. Mrs. Mitchell, the board chairman began, while the circumstances are unusual, your analysis of the Morrison project is exemplary. The revised plans demonstrate exactly the kind of expertise this firm needs. Mr. Morrison, still studying my designs, nodded emphatically. The original plans were impressive on paper, but functionally flawed. These revisions, they're brilliant. They maintain the aesthetic vision while actually making it buildable. I sat at the head of the conference table, James's old seat, feeling the weight of the moment. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city skyline glittered, each building a testament to someone's vision, someone's truth. There will be questions. Margaret spoke up from the corner where she'd been silently seething. The Thompson name will remain. I interrupted smoothly. I have no intention of erasing the firm's legacy, Margaret. Unlike some, I understand the value of giving credit where it's due. A knock at the door interrupted us. Marcus entered with a stack of papers, his face grave. Elena, you need to see this. We've found some irregularities in the firm's recent financial records. The next hour revealed the full scope of James and Rebecca's betrayal. They hadn't just been planning to take control of the firm, they'd been systematically siphoning resources, preparing to launch their own competing practice using stolen client data and designs. The Morrison contract would have been their launching pad, Marcus explained. Once they had that secured, they planned to leave Thompson and Reed gutted. Margaret's face had gone from red to white. That's impossible. James would never— It's all here, I said quietly, spreading out the documentation. Bank transfers, secret meetings, incorporation papers for their new firm. They even trademarked a name. Thompson Carter Architects. Using the Thompson name? Margaret's voice cracked. Without family approval? They assumed they'd have it. After all, I met her eyes steadily. Who would believe the housewife if she tried to stop them? The board chairman cleared his throat. Mrs. Mitchell, given these revelations, we fully support your acquisition of the firm. However, there is the matter of public perception to consider. I nodded, pulling out my tablet. I've prepared a comprehensive transition plan. First, we'll need to reassure our clients and employees. I suggest— My phone buzzed. A message from Maria showing Sophie finally asleep, surrounded by her drawings. Another text followed, this one from James. You'll regret this. You're nothing without the Thompson name. I smiled, thinking of our daughter's inherited talent, her natural eye for design. Actually, I have an announcement to make about the firm's name. The room tensed. Thompson and Reed will become Mitchell and Thompson Architects. Margaret started to protest, but I held up my hand. Not for your son, Margaret, for my daughter. Sophie Thompson, who has more natural talent for architecture than James ever had. This way, both legacies live on. Honestly this time. The board members exchanged glances, then began to nod. They'd all seen Sophie around the office, her sketches showing remarkable promise even at 10 years old. There's something else you should know, I continued, pulling up more files. Over the past 7 years, I've maintained detailed records of every project I've contributed to, not to claim credit retroactively, but to prove my capabilities. I turned to Mr. Morrison. Including the initial concept sketches for your tower that James presented as his own. Mr. Morrison leaned forward. You designed the core concept? The central atrium with its floating gardens? Yes. James liked my sketch but said it was too ambitious. He simplified it for the proposal. I want to see the original design, Mr. Morrison said immediately. The one you envisioned. As I pulled up my original sketches, Maria texted again. Sophie's awake. She wants to know if she can come see your office tomorrow. Your office now, Marcus corrected, reading over my shoulder. Corner suite with the best view in the city. I thought about Sophie seeing her mother's name on the door, understanding that she never had to hide her talents or diminish her light. Mrs. Mitchell, the board chairman said, we'll need to address the staff first thing tomorrow. There are bound to be questions, concerns about job security. I know. I've prepared individual messages for each department head, explaining the transition and my commitment to the firm's future. I paused. And I want to schedule a Women's Leadership Initiative meeting for next week. It's time this firm actively supported all its talent. Margaret stood abruptly. This is still a Thompson family firm. You can't just— You're right, I cut in. It is a Thompson family firm, and I'm doing this for the next generation of Thompsons, for Sophie, and for every other talented person who's been told to make themselves smaller to fit someone else's vision. My phone lit up again. James had posted on social media a bitter rant about betrayal and manipulation. I saw several board members checking their phones, frowning. "Let him vent," I said calmly. "The truth will speak louder." As if on cue, my tablet chimed with an email from the city's top architecture blog. Breaking news. Thompson and Reed's hidden. Talent emerges, the real architect behind recent successes? Marcus grinned. Looks like the truth is already getting out. The meeting continued late into the night, but my mind kept drifting to Sophie. Tomorrow, I'd show her my new office. We'd set up a drawing table by the window where she could sketch while I worked. No more hiding, no more diminishing, no more, just a housewife. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Rebecca. "You've ruined everything we built." Typed back a single response. "No, I'm finally building something real." The next morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of crisp autumn day that makes Manhattan's skyline look like it's etched in crystal. I stood in what was now my office at Mitchell and Thompson Architects, watching the sun glint off neighboring buildings I'd helped design, though few knew it. Until now. "Mom!" Sophie burst through the door, her school uniform slightly rumpled, eyes wide as she took in the corner office. "This is really yours?" "Ours," I corrected, showing her the drawing, table I'd had installed by the window. "I thought you might want to work on your designs here sometimes." She ran to the table, running her fingers over the smooth surface. "Like a real architect?" "You already are a real architect, honey. You just need training to match your talent." Maria appeared in the doorway, smiling. She couldn't wait until after school. "I hope it's okay we came early." Before I could respond, my assistant Sarah knocked on the open door. "Mrs. Mitchell, the staff is gathering in the main conference room, and Mr. Thompson is in the lobby, demanding to be let up." Sophie's face fell. "Dad's here?" I knelt beside her. "Hey, remember what we talked about?" "About standing in your truth," she nodded solemnly. "Well, that's what I'm going to do now. Want to watch?" Her eyes lit up. "Can I?" "From my office, with Maria," I qualified. "The conference room has glass walls. You'll be able to see everything." If on cue, my phone buzzed with a message from James. "You can't lock me out of my own firm. My grandfather built this company." "Sarah, please tell security to let Mr. Thompson up. He should hear this too." I turned to Sophie. "Ready to see Mommy run her company?" The main conference room was packed. Every employee, from senior architects to interns, had squeezed in. Through the glass walls, I could see Sophie and Maria, in my office, giving me thumbs up. James stood at the back of the room, his usual polished appearance notably disheveled. "Good morning," I began, taking my place at the head of the table. "I know there are a lot of questions about what happened last night. You deserve answers." "Damn right we do," James interrupted. "This is a hostile takeover." "This," I cut in smoothly, "is a rescue operation." I nodded to Sarah, who distributed folders to everyone. "Inside, you'll find documentation of the firm's financial status under the previous leadership, including evidence of fund misappropriation and client data theft." The room erupted in whispers as people reviewed the documents. James's face went pale. "You'll also find your updated contracts, all with increased benefits and, in many cases, long overdue promotions." I smiled at several talented women architects who James had repeatedly passed over. "Mitchell and Thompson Architects will be a meritocracy. Talent and hard work will be recognized, regardless of gender or family connections." "You can't just change everything," James protested. "The board fully supports these changes." The board chairman stood up. "Mrs. Mitchell has presented a comprehensive plan to not only save this firm, but propel it into the future." I pulled up the Morrison Tower designs on the room's screens. Starting with this. The original design had structural flaws that could have ruined us. The revised plans, which I completed last night, solve these issues while enhancing the aesthetic vision. Mr. Morrison, who had arrived early for a private meeting, spoke up from his seat. These revisions are revolutionary. The floating gardens concept alone will set new standards for sustainable architecture. Elena's been doing this for years, Sarah suddenly said. Everyone turned to her. Sorry, but we all knew. The designs always came back better after she reviewed them. We just didn't say anything. Because James Thompson took credit for his wife's work, Marcus added from the doorway. Just like he tried to take control of the firm through fraudulent means. That's a lie, James stepped forward. Elena, tell them what? I met his eyes steadily. That I'm just a housewife? That I've been secretly fixing your designs for 7 years while you took the credit? That you and Rebecca planned to steal our biggest clients? The room fell silent. Through the glass, I could see Sophie watching intently, her small face serious. I have something else to show you, I continued, pulling up a new set of designs. These are my original concepts from the past 7 years. Projects that won awards under James's name, but came from my drafting table. The screens filled with familiar buildings, all slightly different from their final forms, all undeniably more innovative. Starting today, Mitchell and Thompson Architects will operate with complete transparency. Every contributor will be credited. Every voice will be heard. I looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. Some of you may choose to leave. That's your right. But those who stay will be part of something revolutionary. A firm where talent isn't hidden, where innovation isn't stifled by ego. You're destroying my family's legacy, James's voice cracked. No, I'm preserving it. For Sophie, and for every other talented person who's been told to make themselves smaller. I gestured to the designs on screen. This is your family's legacy. Not the lies, not the theft, but the buildings. The innovation. The vision. I'm just bringing it into the light. An intern raised her hand. The Women's Leadership Initiative mentioned in our new contracts starts next week, along with a mentorship program and a collaboration with local architecture schools. I smiled. No more hidden talent. The room burst into applause. Through the glass, I saw Sophie beaming, her own drawings spread out on my desk. James stormed out, but I barely noticed. I was too busy watching our daughter, seeing her understand that she never had to hide her light. The rest of the morning was a blur of meetings, interviews, and client calls. By lunch, architecture blogs were running. The full story. By dinner, we'd received dozens of new project inquiries, specifically requesting the original vision they'd seen in my revealed designs. The media storm hit faster than anyone expected. By the end of my first official day as CEO of Mitchell and Thompson Architects, my phone was overwhelmed with interview requests. The story had everything: betrayal, hidden talent, female empowerment, corporate intrigue. But what really caught fire were the designs, my original visions finally seeing the light of day. Mom, look! Sophie burst into my office after school, tablet in hand. You're trending, and they're calling you the hidden architect of Manhattan. I glanced at the article she was reading, a detailed exposé in the Architectural Digest comparing my original concepts with the simplified versions James had implemented. The writer had done their homework, tracking down former employees who confirmed years of my uncredited contributions. Mrs. Mitchell? Sarah appeared in the doorway. The New York Times is here for your interview, and the modern architecture. Review wants to feature your original Morrison Tower design on their cover. And James's lawyers just delivered this, Marcus added, dropping a thick envelope on my desk. Divorce papers, along with a demand for half the company's value. Sophie's face fell. Dad's suing you? I pulled her close. It's just papers, honey. Remember how I always say the truth is our best foundation? She nodded against my side. Well, I've got something to show both of you. I unlocked my desk drawer and pulled out a worn leather portfolio. These are the original contracts from when James and I got married. Marcus picked up one document, his eyes widening. A post-nuptial agreement? But James claimed there wasn't one. He forgot about it. It was his idea, actually. I smiled at the memory. He was so worried about protecting the family business from his trophy wife that he made me sign away any claim to Thompson and Reed, unless I could prove significant uncredited contribution to the firm's success. But you have proof, Sophie said excitedly. All your designs. Every single one, dated and documented. I spread out the contents of the portfolio, years of sketches, notes, revisions, all carefully preserved. I knew someday the truth would need to come out. I just didn't know it would be like this. Sarah cleared her throat. The Times reporter is asking about Rebecca Carter. Apparently, she's giving interviews claiming you manipulated the situation to take over. I thought about the files we'd discovered, showing Rebecca and James's plans to strip the firm's assets. Tell them I'll address that in the interview. And Sophie? I turned to my daughter. Want to see how a real architect handles tough questions? The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman named Claire Chen, sat up in my office while Sophie watched from her drawing table. Mrs. Mitchell, you've been called everything from a corporate raider to a feminist icon this week. How do you respond? I'm neither, I said simply. I'm an architect who spent years hiding her light because she thought that's what love meant. But I learned that real love, whether for a person, a profession, or yourself, never requires you to become smaller. Your husband claims you betrayed the family legacy. The only betrayal would have been letting that legacy be destroyed by greed and lies. I gestured to Sophie's drawing table. The Thompson legacy lives on in the next generation. My daughter has the same passion for architecture that her great-grandfather had. The only difference is, she'll never have to hide it. The interview continued, covering everything from my Columbia days to the Morrison Tower redesign. Throughout it all, Sophie sketched quietly, occasionally looking up with proud smiles. One last question, Claire said, glancing at her notes. Rebecca Carter released a statement calling your takeover a calculated revenge plot. Your response? I stood and walked to the windows, looking out at the skyline I'd helped shape. Ms. Carter and my husband didn't lose the firm because of revenge. They lost it because they chose deception over integrity, ego over excellence. The proof isn't in accusations. It's in the designs. After the reporter left, Sophie brought her latest sketch to my desk. It showed a soaring tower with a unique spiral design. Mom, could we build something like this someday? That's beautiful, honey. Tell me about the structural support system you're envisioning. As she excitedly explained her design, Marcus entered with more papers. The board just approved your restructuring plan, and there's something else. He handed me a letter. The American Institute of Architects wants to review your portfolio for fellow status. Apparently, your body of work, now that it's properly credited, more than qualifies. My phone buzzed with a message from James. You won't get away with this. I made you. Sophie, reading over my shoulder, frowned. That's not true. You made yourself, Mom, and now you're helping other people shine too. She was right. Just that morning, I'd promoted 3 talented women architects who'd been overlooked for years. The Women's Leadership Initiative was already oversubscribed, and architecture schools were calling about partnership programs. Mrs. Mitchell? Sarah appeared again. Mr. Morrison is here with his full team. They want to discuss expanding the tower project. Actually, Mr. Morrison said, entering behind her, we want to discuss making it the first of several projects. Your vision for sustainable, innovative architecture is exactly what this city needs. I looked around my office, at Sophie's drawings, at the skyline beyond, at the growing team gathering outside. The hidden architect was hidden no more, and she had a legacy of her own to build. Sophie, I said, want to help me show Mr. Morrison your spiral tower concept? I think it might be perfect for his next project. Her eyes lit up as she spread out her sketch. The room full of experienced architects and developers leaned in, genuinely interested in my 10-year-old daughter's design. No one told her to make herself smaller. No one dismissed her as just anything. And that, I realized, was the real victory. Not the company takeover, not the professional recognition, but this moment. Watching my daughter stand confidently in her talent, knowing she would never have to hide who she was or what she could do, that was worth everything. The first month, as CEO of Mitchell and Thompson Architects, brought changes no one could have predicted. While James and Rebecca fought their legal battles, all of them doomed by the mountain of evidence we'd uncovered, I focused on transforming the firm into something revolutionary. "The atrium design meeting is starting, Mrs. Mitchell," Sarah announced, poking her head into my office. "And the Washington Post reporter is here for the profile piece." I looked up from where I was reviewing Sophie's latest designs. She'd been coming to the office after school, her drawing table becoming a fixture by my window. Today's sketch showed an innovative playground structure that combined architectural principles with pure childhood joy. "Tell them I'll be right there. And Sarah, have engineering take a look at Sophie's playground design. I think she's onto something with that floating slide concept." "Already did," Sarah grinned. "They're calling it brilliantly unconventional, just like her mom." As I gathered my materials for the meeting, my phone lit up with a news alert. "Breaking: James Thompson and Rebecca Carter face professional ethics investigation." I quickly switched it off before Sophie could see. "Mom?" She looked up from her sketching. "Is Dad still trying to take the company back?" I sat beside her, choosing my words carefully. "Your father and Rebecca made some choices that hurt a lot of people. Now they have to face the consequences. But that's not what we're focusing on, remember?" She nodded. "We're focusing on building things, not breaking them." "Exactly." I pointed to her playground design. "Like this. You've created something that will bring joy to children. That's what architecture should be about. Making the world better, one design at a time." Maria appeared to take Sophie home, but my daughter hesitated. "Can I stay for the atrium meeting? I have some ideas." I checked the time. It was a school night, but okay, but just for the first half hour. And homework gets done first thing. Tomorrow. The conference room was packed when we entered. The Morrison Tower atrium had become our signature project, the one everyone was watching. My original design, with its floating gardens and sustainable water features, had captured imaginations worldwide. "Mrs. Mitchell," Mr. Morrison stood as we entered, "and young Miss Thompson. I heard engineering's quite impressed with your playground." "A concept," Sophie beamed, clutching her sketchbook. I watched as heads turned, noting the resemblance between us, not just physically, but in the way we carried ourselves now. No more shrinking, no more hiding. "Before we begin," I addressed, "the room, I'd like to share something." I pulled up Sophie's playground designs on the main screen. My daughter had an insight about public spaces that I think applies to our atrium project. For the next 15 minutes, Sophie explained her concept of joyful architecture, spaces that served their purpose while delighting their users. The room listened intently, seasoned architects taking notes as a 10-year-old redefined their perspective. After Maria took Sophie home, the Washington Post reporter caught up with me. "Your daughter seems to have inherited your architectural vision." "She's finding her own vision," I corrected. "That's what happens when talent isn't forced to hide." "Speaking of hiding," she glanced at her notes, "your ex-husband gave an interview, claiming you manipulated events to steal his family's company." I led her to the wall of original designs, my designs, that now lined the main hallway. The truth isn't in interviews or accusations. It's in the work. Every design here is documented, dated, and verified. The real manipulation was convincing talented people, especially women, that they had to make themselves smaller to fit someone else's narrative. "Is that why you're launching the Mitchell and Thompson Foundation for Women in Architecture?" I smiled. The foundation had been Sophie's idea. born from her realization that other girls might need help believing in their talents. We're not just building buildings anymore. We're building futures. My phone buzzed. A message from the board chairman. Ethics committee verdict just came in. James and Rebecca barred from practicing architecture in New York. Your testimony made the difference. I thought about the hearing last week, standing before the committee to detail years of professional misconduct. It hadn't been about revenge. It had been about truth, about protecting our profession's integrity. Mrs. Mitchell? Sarah appeared with more urgent matters. The Singapore developers are on the line about the Eco Tower project, and James's mother is here. I hadn't seen Margaret Thompson since the night of the gala. She stood in my office doorway, looking somehow smaller without her usual armor of social superiority. The foundation, she said without preamble. I'd like to contribute, and I have my mother's original designs from when this firm began. She was an architect, too. But in those days, they made her hide it. I finished softly. Like James made you hide. Like I encouraged you to hide. She placed a worn portfolio on my desk. Maybe it's time these saw the light, too. As we examined her mother's work, brilliant, innovative designs from an era when women weren't welcome in architecture, I thought about the legacy we were really building. Not just glass and steel reaching skyward, but bridges across generations of hidden talent. We'll display them, I decided. Alongside contemporary work by women architects, show how far we've come and how far we still have to go. Margaret touched one of her mother's sketches, her hand trembling slightly. James was wrong, you know. You didn't destroy his grandfather's legacy. You honored it by refusing to let talent be buried by prejudice. My phone lit up with another message. Sophie, sending a photo of her latest sketch. A design for the foundation's headquarters. The caption read, "For all the architects who had to hide, never again." I showed it to Margaret, watching her eyes fill with tears. She has the Thompson gift, she whispered. No, I corrected gently. She has her own gift, and she'll never have to pretend it's anything less than extraordinary. Winter descended on Manhattan, transforming the city skyline into a glittering wonderland of snow and lights. From my office at Mitchell & Thompson Architects, I watched workers install the foundation's new sign on the building across the street. Building dreams, breaking barriers. Sophie had helped choose the tagline. Mom! Speaking of Sophie, she burst into my office, still in her winter coat, snow melting in her hair. You have to see this! She thrust a letter into my hands, embossed with the seal of her school's architecture club. They want me to design the new student center, a real building. That's amazing, honey. I pulled her into a hug, snow and all. Tell me about your concept. Before she could answer, Sarah appeared with her usual stack of urgent matters. Mrs. Mitchell, the Modern Architecture Review wants to feature Sophie's playground in their next generation issue. And your former mother-in-law's historical collection is causing quite a stir. The exhibition of Margaret's mother's designs had grown into something unprecedented. Women architects from around the world had started sending in their own hidden works. Brilliant designs that had been credited to men, buried in archives, or dismissed as too ambitious. There's something else, Sarah added hesitantly. James was seen at the courthouse this morning. Sophie's excitement dimmed. Is Dad still trying to take the company? No, sweetie. The ethics committee ruling was final. I kept my voice gentle. He's probably just filing an appeal, Marcus interrupted, striding in with a legal document. Claims he has new evidence that you coerced him into the original postnuptial agreement. I felt Sophie tense beside me. Hey, I turned her to face me. Remember what we say about foundations. Truth is the strongest foundation, she recited, then added, and lies always crack under pressure. Exactly. Now why don't you show Sarah your student-centered designs while I handle this? Once Sophie was happily explaining her concept to Sarah, I turned to Marcus. What's he really after? Money, mostly. The ethics ruling hit him hard. No firm will touch him now. Rebecca's already left the country. Marcus spread out the appeal documents. But there's something else. He's requesting access to Sophie's trust fund, claiming it was established with fraudulently obtained assets. My blood ran cold. The trust fund contained Sophie's inheritance from her great-grandfather, the original founder of Thompson and Reed. I'd protected it during the takeover, ensuring it would be there for her architecture education. He can't touch that, I said firmly. It's in an irrevocable trust, specifically for Sophie's education. He's desperate, Marcus agreed. But this appeal… Elena, he's going to drag everything up again. The media, the accusations. I glanced at Sophie, still enthusiastically, sharing her designs. She'd grown so much in these past months, blossoming in an environment where her talent was celebrated, not hidden. Let him try, I decided. We have nothing to hide anymore. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a message from Margaret. Saw James at court? I'm testifying for you if needed. Some legacies need to end. The transformation in my former mother-in-law had been remarkable. Since discovering her own mother's hidden architectural career, she'd become a fierce advocate for women in the field. The Foundation's historical collection was largely her work now. Mrs. Mitchell? Sarah reappeared. The Singapore clients are here early, and Sophie wants to show them her student-center design. I smiled, remembering a time when a child's architectural drawings would have been dismissed as cute but irrelevant. Tell them we'll be right there. In the conference room, Sophie confidently presented her concept to some of Asia's top developers. Her design incorporated elements of traditional school architecture while adding innovative spaces for collaboration and creativity. Remarkable, the lead developer said, studying the plans. She has your vision, Mrs. Mitchell. The ability to see beyond conventional limitations. Actually, Sophie spoke up, Mom taught me that limitations are just challenges waiting for creative solutions. The meeting continued, with Sophie's design sparking a larger discussion about educational architecture. I watched my daughter hold her own in a room full of professionals, never once doubting her right to be there. Afterward, as we walked back to my office, Sophie asked, Mom, if Dad takes everything away again, will we have to hide? I stopped, kneeling to meet her eyes. Listen to me. No one can take away your talent, your vision, or your voice. Those belong to you, just like they always belonged to me. I just forgot that for a while. But Dad's trying. Your father is fighting because he doesn't understand something very important. I gestured to the walls around us, covered in designs by women architects past and present. Real strength isn't in controlling others. It's in helping them shine. My phone lit up with another legal update, but I ignored it. Instead, I pulled out Sophie's latest sketch, her vision for the Foundation's first scholarship residence, where young women architects would live and work while studying. See this? I pointed to her innovative use of communal spaces. You designed this to bring people together, to help them support each other. That's true power, not tearing down, but building up. Sarah appeared with more urgent matters, but paused, seeing us studying the design. The contractors called about the residence, she said. They can break ground in spring. Sophie's eyes widened. They're really building my design? With some technical adjustments, I nodded. But yes, your vision is going to help other young architects follow their dreams. As we stood there, exploring her design together, I thought about the long journey from hidden architect to CEO, from supportive wife to industry leader. But more importantly, I thought about the future, Sophie's future, and the futures of all the talented people who would no longer have to hide their light. 1 year to the day after the gala that changed everything, I stood on the stage of the American Institute of Architects annual award ceremony. The audience was a sea of faces, industry leaders, emerging talents, and in the front row, Sophie, beaming with pride. Architecture isn't just about buildings, I began my keynote speech. It's about creating spaces where people can grow, dream, and become who they're meant to be. Sometimes those spaces are physical, like our Morrison Tower with its floating gardens, but sometimes they're metaphorical, the space to be yourself, to let your talent shine. In the years since taking over Mitchell and Thompson Architects, we'd transformed more than just the company. The Women in Architecture Foundation had already awarded 50 scholarships. Sophie's playground design had won international recognition and was being replicated in cities worldwide. And Margaret's collection of hidden architects had become a traveling exhibition, inspiring conversations about talent and recognition across the globe. "Mom!" Sophie rushed the stage as soon as the ceremony ended. "They're breaking ground on my student center next week. Can we go see it?" Of course, I hugged her close. "The contractor said you can even help pour the first foundation, Mrs. Mitchell." A young woman approached us, clutching a portfolio. "I'm one of your foundation scholarship recipients. I just wanted to say—" She glanced at Sophie, then back to me. "You showed us we don't have to choose between our dreams and ourselves." Before I could respond, Marcus appeared with breaking news. "Elena, the final appeal was rejected. James's claims have been completely dismissed." Sophie squeezed my hand. "So it's really over?" "It was over the moment we chose truth over hiding," I told her. Everything else was just paperwork. My phone buzzed, a message from Margaret. "The historical collection is opening in Chicago next month. They want Sophie to speak about her generation's vision for architecture." The transformation hadn't just been professional. Sophie had blossomed, her talent growing stronger as she realized she never had to contain it. She'd started a design club at school, mentoring younger students who shared her passion for architecture. "Mrs. Mitchell?" Sarah appeared with her ever-present tablet. "The Morrison Tower tenants are moving in next week. They want you and Sophie to do the honors at the ribbon cutting." I looked at my daughter, remembering the night everything changed. "What do you say, Sophie? Ready to show the world what happens when we build on truth?" She grinned, pulling out her latest sketch, a design for a women's architecture museum. Truth is the strongest foundation. As we left the ceremony, I caught sight of our reflection in the glass doors. Mother and daughter, both standing tall, both carrying drawings that would help shape the future. No more hiding, no more diminishing, no more just anything. We were architects, and our greatest design had been rebuilding ourselves. "Mom?" Sophie asked as we headed home. "Do you ever regret not doing this sooner?" I thought about the long journey, about all the moments I'd made myself smaller, thinking it was what love required. "No," I said finally. Every experience, even the painful ones, helped build who we are now. The trick is to use those experiences to build something better. My phone lit up with another message. The dean of Sophie's school wanted to implement her student center design across the district. "Your daughter isn't just designing buildings," she wrote. "She's designing the future of educational spaces." Sophie peered at the message, then looked up at me. "They like my designs because I don't hide anymore. Just like you." "That's right," I agreed. "And speaking of not hiding, want to show me your museum designs over dinner?" As we walked home through the winter evening, I thought about all the women architects whose work was finally being recognized, about the young scholars in our foundation program, about Sophie and her generation who would never have to shrink themselves to fit someone else's expectations. The city skyline glittered around us, each building a testament to someone's vision. Among them stood our new projects, the Morrison Tower, the foundation headquarters, soon Sophie's student center, all designed with truth as their foundation. "You know what, Mom?" Sophie said, studying the cityscape. "Every building tells a story, And now we get to tell ours. She was right. Every design, every structure, every space we created now carried the message. Talent doesn't have to hide. Dreams don't have to be dimmed. And the most beautiful architectures are the ones built on truth. Spring arrived in Manhattan with a burst of cherry blossoms and new beginnings. The Mitchell and Thompson Foundation headquarters was nearing completion. Its innovative design, a collaboration between Sophie and me, already turning heads in the architectural community. "Mom, look," Sophie called from her drawing table, now a permanent fixture in my office. The museum committee approved my changes to the children's wing. The Women in Architecture Museum had grown from Sophie's sketch into a groundbreaking project. Set to open next year, it would showcase not just Margaret's historical collection, but also interactive exhibits designed to inspire the next generation of architects. "Mrs. Mitchell," Sarah entered with her usual stack of updates. "The documentary crew is here for final interviews. And there's something else." She hesitated. "James sent this." I took the envelope, recognizing my ex-husband's handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, not legal documents this time, but a letter. "You don't have to read it," Sophie said quietly, moving to stand beside me. But I did. After everything, I owed myself this closure. "Elena," the letter began, "today I walked past the Morrison Tower, really looked at it, for the first time. At the floating gardens you designed, at the way light plays through the atrium. I finally understood something. You never took anything from me. You simply stopped letting me take from you. Our daughter's student center opens next week. I saw her, interviewed about it on TV. She has your light, the one I tried so hard to dim. I'm sorry. Not for losing the firm, but for making you think you had to be less so I could feel like more. James." Sophie read over my shoulder. "Are you okay, Mom?" I folded the letter carefully. "Yes, honey. Sometimes people need to lose everything to see what was really there." "Mrs. Mitchell?" The documentary director poked her head in. "We're ready for your final interview. Sophie, too, if she's willing." The documentary, titled Hidden Light, The Revolution of Women in Architecture, had been following our story for months. Not just the corporate takeover, but the larger transformation it sparked in the industry. As we settled into the interview setup, I watched Sophie arrange her latest designs, confident, poised, unafraid to take up space in the world. "Final question," the director said after an hour of filming. "What would you say to other women who feel pressured to hide their talents?" Sophie spoke up before I could. "My mom taught me that talent is like light. You can hide it under a shade, but it doesn't make it shine any less. It just means fewer people get to benefit from its brightness." The director smiled. Wise words from the youngest recipient of the Future of Architecture Award. Later that afternoon, I stood with Sophie at the construction site of her student center. Workers called out greetings, many knowing her by name. Now, she'd been a regular presence during construction, learning how her designs translated into reality. "Ready to make history?" I handed her a hard hat. She grinned, taking it. "Always." Together, we poured the final section of foundation concrete. Sophie pressed her hands into it, leaving an impression alongside her signature. "For all the architects who had to hide," she wrote in the wet concrete. "Never again." My phone buzzed. Margaret sending photos from the Chicago exhibition of her mother's work. The collection had grown into a movement, with hidden architectural histories being uncovered and celebrated worldwide. "Mom?" Sophie asked as we watched the concrete set. "Remember when you used to help Dad with his designs in secret?" I nodded. "Did you ever think back then that we'd be here, building things together, out in the open?" I thought about those nights, spent quietly fixing James's designs, telling myself it was love when really it was fear. Fear of shining too bright, of taking up too much space. "No," I admitted. "Back then, I thought making myself smaller would make our family stronger." I didn't understand that real strength comes from letting everyone shine their brightest. Sarah appeared with more updates. The Foundation's scholarship program was expanding internationally. The Morrison Tower had won another sustainability award, and Sophie's playground design was being adapted for children's hospitals. Oh, and the Architectural Review Board wants you both to consult on their new guidelines for inclusive design practices, Sarah added. Sophie beamed. See, Mom? We're not just building buildings anymore. No, I agreed, watching my daughter's legacy already taking shape at just 11 years old. We're building change. As we left the construction site, I caught our reflection in a window. Mother and daughter, hard hats and blueprints, standing tall in the afternoon light. No more shadows, no more hiding. Hey, Mom, Sophie said as we walked. I've been thinking about the Foundation's next project. What if we created a space specifically for mentoring young architects, like a bridge between generations? I smiled, remembering my own journey from hidden talent to industry leader. Draw it for me. Show me your vision. Because that's what we did now. We built, we dreamed, we created. Not in secret, not in shadow, but in the full light of day. And with each new project, each new design, we laid another foundation for those who would come after us, never to hide again. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.